And if anyone can explain to me the ending of that gospel reading, talk to me after the church, because I'm sure not going to preach on that part. I'm preaching on something different. I don't know how many of you parents have had this situation happen. I found in raising our kids that if one parent was present when a child got into trouble, and the other parent came home, this is usually what was said. Your child. Do you notice in the story of Exodus that God says to Moses, your people are causing all kinds of trouble down there. They're worshiping other gods. You know what? Pull out your Bibles. Oh my gosh, we're in another denominational church. Everybody pull out your Bibles. Open them to the book of Exodus, chapter 32. Exodus is at the beginning of the Bible. Exodus is the second book of the Bible. So turn to Exodus chapter 32, which is our reading today. At least I hope it is. Yes. Now, go back several pages. Don't read it, but they go back a long time. Moses is up on the mountain for a long time, and the writers that put all this together are putting a lot of print together. God is giving Moses all kinds of orders and how to vest the priest. Oh, and this tribe of Benjamin is so good. I can't wait for them to handle all the other things that have to be made. Everything is just going great. All this preparation for all the promises of God and how things are going to be so wonderful. Then he walks into church. Oh, wait a minute. No, he doesn't walk into church. He goes back down the mountain to where the people are. And they've asked Aaron to make a golden calf. Now, Aaron's trying to get him to use the calf to worship Yahweh, God, but it's not really working. The people of God, when they're not about God's business, tend to get in trouble. You know, I'm thinking back over what the South would call the recent unpleasantries, which in our case has been the last, 2,000 years. Ever since the disciples started fighting with each other. Oh gosh, they even started in the Acts where the Greek widows were complaining they didn't get the same care as the Jewish Christian widows, and so the apostles said, enough of this, we're going to be preaching the gospel. We'll ordain deacons to take care of them. I have this theory. Actually, I have a question. As you may have heard over the last at least 15 years, at least since before 2003, since the 1990s, the churches have been having these internal debates. And we've been getting a lot of publicity about them, whether it's about sexuality or how the Bible should be taken, all of that kind of stuff. And I always ask the question, what would we be doing if we weren't fighting with each other? What would we be doing if we weren't debating what the proper way to worship is? What would we be doing if we weren't all wrapped up in our internal organizations? You know, right after the ascension of Jesus, they go back and Jesus says, wait, pray, and they're up there. And Peter's doing his hands like this. Well, I'm going fishing. So he goes fishing. Then another time he says, well, you know what? We got to have an election. Let's elect someone to take Judas's place. Man, how'd you like to have that job? So they elect Matthias. Boring. What if the people of God were about the business of God most of the time? What if we were so concerned to share the gospel, the good news, to the world that we didn't have time to fight with each other? What if we were in prayer for each other instead of arguing with each other? I have this theory, and it is theory, that if we could serve God with all our heart, with all our mind, with all our strength, with all our time, with all our checkbook, our calendar, we wouldn't be having any fights. Isn't it a great thing when the people of God get together? It's a joyful thing. Maybe if we spend our time rejoicing in the Lord, rather than complaining to one another. We're not doing that right now. Hey, we're in a good stage, don't get me wrong. At least as far as I know, I haven't heard any. Have you heard it?
None at all.
Oh, everything's good? Cat? Good? All right. Choir? All right. Right now we're doing pretty good. But trust me, if we follow in the footsteps of the apostles, we will be tempted to get sidetracked somewhere down the road. How can we be sidetracked if we're praising God? How can we be sidetracked? Maybe our problem is, as a church, as a denomination, that they talk about the mainline denominations are losing numbers. Well, that's not bad, really. After all, we're called to be the salt of the world. You don't want too much salt. And we are called to be the light of the world. You don't want too much light. We don't want spotlights everywhere. We are to be lanterns. Oh, your word is a lantern to my feet, God. We're to be praising God most of the time. And that's the cool thing on Sundays, is that's exactly what we do. But I must confess also, there are times in my life when, like the Israelites, when Moses has gone too long, when I feel like God is gone too long. Where are you, God? The psalmists shout that many times. The most faithful people are the ones who wrote the Psalms. They wrote great praises to God, and they wrote great weeping to God, lamentation. Where are you, God? And I'll have to confess that the times in my life where I'm asking that question, I have oftentimes gotten distracted by my business, or by my family, or by my problems, or my concerns. And I will get distracted for quite some time. Or I might be angry at God. I'm just not going to talk to you. I know none of you have ever said that to one another or to God, but maybe some of you have. That's why the discipline of coming to church with our fellow travelers is so important, because when I'm down, you're up. When I'm up, you may be down, but together we can remember, we can be reminded of the glory of God. We can be reminded that we're called to rejoice in God. None of us are in exactly the same place at any given moment. And that's the cool thing about the structure of our worship service. And it begins with praise. Holy, holy, holy. If I could get the opening hymn right, that's a great way to start. All right, I'm going to do you a favor and end this really short. Are you ready, Joyce?